Rain blurred the busy downtown streets when Daniel Brooks heard a violent crash outside his garage. He rushed through the doorway and saw his old blue pickup sitting crooked beside a black luxury SUV. A young woman stood nearby, stunned and furious, while luggage spilled across the pavement around her. The woman wore a tailored cream coat and carried herself with unmistakable confidence, but her trembling hands revealed panic. Daniel approached carefully and asked whether she was hurt. She shook her head, then glanced at his damaged truck. "I'm sorry," she said, sounding far more frightened than angry that evening. Daniel inspected both vehicles before answering. His truck had a crushed front fender, while the SUV barely showed a scratch. He assured her that accidents happened. She seemed surprised by his calm reaction. Most people would have demanded payment immediately after seeing the expensive vehicle she had driven that morning. Her name was Victoria Sterling. Though Daniel did not recognize it, Victoria was a billionaire heiress and appointed executive of Sterling Industries. She had arrived in town for a private meeting concerning her father's estate. Daniel only knew she was someone accustomed to solving difficult problems with money and influence. Victoria offered to pay for everything, but Daniel refused to discuss numbers until they knew the damage. While examining his truck, he noticed an old brass key lying beneath the passenger seat. His expression changed instantly. Victoria saw it and asked why a simple key had suddenly made him nervous. Daniel picked up the key carefully and stared at its worn initials. They belonged to Richard Sterling, Victoria's father. Daniel had met Richard 12 years earlier, long before Victoria became involved with the family business. Richard had once visited Daniel's garage during a storm and trusted him with something personal. Victoria immediately demanded an explanation. Daniel hesitated because Richard had made him promise never to reveal the secret unless Victoria truly needed the truth. The billionaire had feared that certain relatives wanted control of his company and would manipulate his daughter after his death. Daniel remembered warning from that night. Daniel remembered Richard arriving one night, driving the black SUV now damaged outside the garage. He had asked Daniel to repair a compartment beneath the rear floor. Inside, Richard placed documents and an encrypted drive, then gave Daniel the brass key. Daniel never forgot that important conversation. "If anything happens to me," Richard had said, "keep this safe. When Victoria's ready to lead, give her the key." Daniel had never opened the compartment. He respected Richard's trust, even after hearing that the billionaire had died unexpectedly months later. Keeping promises mattered more than simple personal curiosity. Victoria stared at Daniel in disbelief. She spent months fighting relatives who claimed her father had left everything organized. Yet several financial records were missing, and her uncle had pressured her to sell controlling shares. Daniel realized Richard's warning was becoming reality. Victoria finally understood the immediate danger surrounding her family. Daniel told Victoria that he possessed something her father had entrusted to him. He did not reveal every detail on the street. Instead, he invited her inside the garage, where they could speak privately. Victoria followed, still confused, but suddenly far more interested than she had been moments earlier. Behind an old workbench, Daniel opened a locked cabinet and removed a weathered metal box. Victoria recognized her father's handwriting on the lid. Her confidence disappeared. She touched the letters carefully, remembering childhood mornings when Richard used to write notes for her before business trips. Those memories hurt deeply inside. Inside the box sat the brass key's matching lock mechanism, several sealed documents, and an encrypted drive. Daniel explained everything Richard had told him. Victoria read the first document and discovered evidence suggesting that her uncle had secretly transferred company assets through shell companies. The revelation stunned her deeply. Victoria's hands began shaking as she turned each page. The documents contained dates, account numbers, signatures, and instructions written by her father. Richard had suspected betrayal, but lacked enough evidence to confront his brother safely. He had trusted Daniel because Daniel had never been impressed by wealth, status, or power. Victoria asked why Daniel had waited so long. Daniel answered honestly. Richard had ordered him to remain silent until Victoria personally came searching for answers. The accident had not been planned, but seeing the key had convinced Daniel that circumstances had finally brought her to him. Fate had intervened. Together, they contacted an attorney and an independent forensic accountant. Within days, investigators confirmed that millions had been redirected from Sterling Industries. Victoria's uncle was confronted with evidence he believed had disappeared forever. His carefully constructed story collapsed almost immediately. Authorities began examining the financial records immediately afterward, confirming everything. Victoria later returned to Daniel's garage, this time without anger, lawyers, or expensive vehicles. She apologized for the accident and thanked him for protecting her father's final secret. Daniel smiled warmly and said he had only kept a promise faithfully. Victoria replied that keeping it had protected her future forever. The damaged blue pickup became a symbol of an unlikely turning point. Victoria paid for its complete restoration, but Daniel refused to accept a luxury replacement. He loved the old truck because it reminded him of many long years spent building his life honestly, one difficult repair at a time. Victoria offered Daniel a senior position overseeing restoration projects for Sterling Industries, but he negotiated something unusual. He wanted funding for a community mechanics program teaching young people practical skills. Victoria agreed, realizing her father would have admired Daniel's desire to create opportunities rather than accumulate personal wealth. Months later, Daniel stood beside his pickup at the opening of the training center. Victoria arrived smiling, while photographs of Richard Sterling decorated the entrance. Daniel touched the brass key in his pocket and remembered the promise that had begun with trust, survived an accident, and changed 2 lives forever.